Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming His Excellency, the President of Romania, Mr. Klaus Iohannis, accompanied by Mr. Werner Hoyer, the President of the European Investment Bank. Please welcome them. Once again, another round of applause for the President. Welcome, Mr. President. Welcome back, Mr. Werner Hoyer. Of course, we will hear from you, Mr. President, in just a moment, and you're gracious enough to stay with us to take a couple of questions from the audience in just a bit. But first, of course, it is my pleasure to welcome back Werner Hoyer to the podium to introduce our esteemed guest, the President of Romania. Mr. Hoyer, once again, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a fruitful break after our first panel today on adapting to a changing world. It is my great pleasure and honor now to introduce the first keynote speaker of our forum, Dr. Klaus Werner Iohannis, President of Romania. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation to this place, which you know so well, because we just found out outside that across from this impressive hall there is the Philharmonic of Luxembourg, one of the most impressive buildings here. And it was inaugurated when Luxembourg was cultural capital of Europe in the last decade. No, before, in 2007. And at that time, President Iohannis was the mayor of Sibiu, the Romanian European capital of culture at that time. So Luxembourg and Sibiu have quite a history together. So welcome here. And I'm quite sure that President Iohannis is someone who definitely knows a thing or two about adapting to a changing world. Before I come back to President Iohannis, let me say that there is one other friend and VIP missing today. President Iohannis is here, but the other one is not, and that is Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, also a common friend and normally guests to this event. But she has a very, very good reason for the terrible decision not to come here. Just 2 or 3 hours ago, she came to an agreement with Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, to reach agreement on Northern Ireland Protocol. And that is a huge achievement, and I will forever forgive her for not being here, because that is really a good reason not to be here. President Iohannis, born into a Transylvanian Saxon family in 1959, began his professional life as a teacher before moving into education administration in the county of Sibiu, the medieval center of the country's ethnic German minority. And in 2000, he was elected Sibiu's mayor with over 70% of the votes cast. And he remained popular, winning 4 consecutive terms in office with equally impressive scores. Incidentally, during his second mandate in 2007, Sibiu, as I said, shared the title European Capital of Culture alongside Luxembourg. When Klaus Iohannis left the mayor's office, he left behind a beautiful, clean, and prosperous city with almost no unemployment, admired throughout Europe. He was elected president of Romania for the first time in 2014, and 5 years later won a second mandate with over 66% of votes. I have known President Iohannis now for many years, and I'm very happy that we can finally welcome him here. Klaus Iohannis is a strong promoter of European values, the protection of minorities and cultural diversity, something that was recognized 2 years ago when he was awarded the Prix Charlemagne in Aachen. He has won numerous other honorary distinctions for his contribution to the promotion of democratic values, transparency, the rule of law, and the fight against corruption. As president, he has pursued policies to improve the environment, reduce pollution, and limit climate change to the benefit of the quality of life of Romania's citizens. Distinguished guests, we will have the honor today to gain his perspective on the challenges that the EU and the world are facing at the moment, on how to strengthen our union, and how to enhance the EU's external action. So without any further delay, I give the floor to President Iohannis. Herr Präsident, die Bühne ist frei für Sie.
Thank you very much. Good evening. President Hoyer, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor and a pleasure to attend the first European Investment Bank Group Forum today. Thank you, President Hoyer, for this timely initiative to bring together public and private actors to exchange and look for the best solutions for adapting to a changing world. We are indeed living critical times. A decade of change and major shifts is already in motion. Security cannot be taken for granted in Europe anymore, following Russia's illegal war against Ukraine. Energy prices have spiked, and security of supply has been threatened. Inflation is taking a toll on our citizens' economic well-being. Climate action is urgently needed. Yet, our decisive action for the green transition is still facing hurdles. So is the digital transition. Global economies are confronted with rising levels of debt and low growth, both increasing macroeconomic vulnerabilities and reducing interest for investment. Financial sustainability is itself under new pressure. Supply chain dependencies, especially for raw materials, have become a major vulnerability for post-pandemic economies. As a result of all this, the global economy is becoming more and more fragmented. Globalization is facing serious challenges. In a nutshell, uncertainty seems to be the certainty of this decade. All this obliges to adapt faster than we used to. Those who are able to do it, and even be one step further, will emerge stronger, more resilient, and future-ready. I will share with you today my country's vision on how we can make this happen in Europe. 3 things will be essential. First, adaptability through rapid solutions to the current challenges while preserving our strategic objectives. Second, unity of action. In a fragmented world, the European Union can succeed only if member states stay together. Third, staying true to our fundamental values. At this critical time, we need to act decisively to strengthen Europe both inside and on the global stage. Ladies and gentlemen, building resilience starts at home. Our internal cohesion is the core of our strength. This needs to be preserved as a matter of priority. The new economic era that emerges already requires massive investments in green and digital transitions, especially through innovative and competitive new clean technologies. Faced with the current uncertainty, to avoid an investment and innovation gap, the European Union needs to remain an attractive destination. And it is our duty as member states to contribute to a stable, cohesive, and prosperous Europe with a solid economy and a competitive industry. The Romanian economy is actively playing its part in these efforts. We see the current context as an accelerator for our ambitions toward the digital, green, and sustainable future, and an opportunity to boost investment across the board in energy, transport, agriculture, health infrastructure, and technology. Ladies and gentlemen, European funds and investments have been the source of Romania's prosperity for more than 15 years, visibly boosting our GDP, economic growth, and country modernization. We have worked steadily on reforms, concentrating on cohesion and closing the gaps with older member states. The results are here. Our GDP per capita, expressed in terms of purchasing power, is around 75% of the European Union average in 2022. The latest data confirmed we have a resilient economy. We had one of the highest economic growth rates in 2022, and we have proved to be one of the most performing, profitable, and stable markets in Eastern Europe. Our business community is already investing in tackling climate change and see the transition to a green economy as a real opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, global forecasts are optimistic about our further perspectives as Eastern Europe's second largest economy and an example of growth in the region. To sustain this, our National Recovery and Resilience Plan, as well as other EU funds or programs such as InvestEU, will remain growth drivers and catalysts for strong investment in our country. The European Investment Bank is an important partner in implementing these projects, which are key for supporting the sustainable development of our economy. From large-scale economic projects to SMEs, energy, education, urban development, or connectivity. We particularly welcome the EIB's financial reinforcement of the Repower EU plan, contributing to energy security and paving the way towards a resilient green economy of the future. Moyen, Premier Minister. Extending access to finance for micro-entrepreneurs, farmers, and businesses all over the country, and avoiding excessive focus on development pillars remain as crucial as exchanging best financial practices. Additional support for municipal infrastructure projects would be also welcome. Distinguished audience, if our internal efforts should be guided by the need to preserve cohesion and enhance the resilience of our economies, our global action should be defined by one keyword: trust. Trustworthy economic policies need to bring more economic competitiveness for a sustainable economic growth in the European Union. We have seen nowadays how economic dependencies can easily turn into a precursor of blackmailing tools. 2022 has taught us that anything from energy to food can be weaponized. Our citizens should not pay the economic price of such destabilizing actions. However, isolation and protectionism cannot be the answer either. Connected markets, fair global competition, exchange of technology and know-how, they all boost productivity and generate prosperity. In brief, the cost of the green and digital transitions will increase, and the European competitiveness will pay the bill if we cut our global links. Nevertheless, we should be carefully choosing these links. This new geopolitical reality requires shifting from a purely cost-based approach to a more trust-oriented approach. In other words, moving away from unreliable global actors and towards reliable diversification. Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, our ties with our closest partners remain a priority. Transatlantic cooperation is crucial. The United States shares our goals. We also need to reach out to partners all over the world, in Asia, Latin America, or Africa. We need to match our global political influence with our economic power. To do this, we need to be more present and part of the solution in international crises. The key is to find common ground that we can build on together. Just as an example of European solution to global crisis, 1 billion euros has been mobilized for solidarity lanes to increase global food security and support Ukraine's economy. In order to match our global political influence with our economic power, the European Union needs also to adapt its economic and green investment offer. Instruments such as free trade agreements and initiatives like industrial partnerships or a possible critical raw materials club need to be fully capitalized and further explored. We welcome the European Investment Bank's contribution to these efforts through the dedicated Global Gateway Fund, supporting high-impact infrastructure, clean energy, and human development across the world. On our side, just last December, we agreed, together with our partners from Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Hungary, to develop a Black Sea green electricity submarine cable, part of the EU Global Gateway investment priorities. This will contribute to enhance energy security in the region and in Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, the European Union has the right tools to adapt to this decade of change and help shape tomorrow's world in a sustainable manner, fit for future generations. It is up to us, the member states, together with partners such as the European Investment Bank, to do our part in making this happen. With its potential, creativity, and dynamic young generation, Romania, my country, is ready to play its part towards these concrete solutions for a Europe fit for the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you very
it.
much.
Please have a seat. Thank you so much, President Iohannis, for your remarks. This is also a good opportunity to welcome the Prime Minister of Luxembourg, Xavier Bettel, is here. Please give him a round of applause. Mr. Prime Minister, we will see you, of course, on the stage in just a bit for the second panel. But President Iohannis, you said uncertainty is the new certainty, and globalism is very much under assault these days, making it quite challenging for leaders all across the world, but European ones as well. You have kindly accepted to stick around for a few more minutes to take 2 or 3 questions from the audience, which we will, of course, now do. If you have questions, please raise your hands. We will collect them. I think that's the best way to save some time. We will collect 2, 3 questions, throw it back to you, and then conclude the session. So if you have a question, please raise your hand so the microphone can get to you in time. I see the audience is still somewhat shy or still very much mesmerized by what you've said. You've convinced everybody. There's no more questions left. But as a matter of fact, there's one gentleman right there who has the microphone. Please introduce yourself.
President, I have a question to you. And maybe it's not easy, but I will try. Sometimes we get a feeling in Europe that we are a bit isolated when it comes to support of Ukraine. And you also spoke a bit about this, I understood it that way, that we have to be much better in actually bringing the others on board with us. And Ukraine crisis, the war in Ukraine is, I think, a very terrible example of actually that we may feel that we do the right thing, but we don't get enough support. How would you define what we can do better as the European Union to make sure that we take the others with us? Thank you.
Yes, of course, by all means.
Thank you very much for your question. This is a good example of how we can do what I believe is extremely important for the European Union, to act in solidarity and unity. And we did. I mean, everybody here in the room knows about the way we helped and we continue to help Ukraine. We have now, I think, the 10th sanction package in place. We approved a huge financial package for Ukraine. We believe that we are on the right side. We do not do this for other reasons than that we believe it's the right thing to do. Ukraine has European aspirations, and Ukraine has been illegally, unjustified, been attacked by Russia. So we are on the side of Ukraine. We are helping Ukraine. And still, if we talk to politicians, to leaders from other continents, sometimes we are puzzled by their answers. By far not everybody is convinced that we are on the right side. Sometimes I hear strange allegations. Some people really believe that it's our fault that we have shortages in supply. It's our fault that we almost had a food crisis. Well, it's quite obvious. We are doing a lot, but we are not explaining enough why we do this, why we act value-based and not money-based. And we have to be well, not aggressive, but more active. And this is why I also, in my introduction, I said we have to match our diplomatic or global weight, ours, the European Union's, with our economy. We have a huge economic power, but our influence in areas of crisis is far from this. So we have to be really more united. We have to work to have a stronger voice. And of course, we have to convince more and more of our friends and like-minded partners that what we do is moral-based, is value-based, and make them join us. Sadly, this is not the only area where our narratives are not strong enough, and probably there is a bit of a problem of our narrative towards our own European citizens. I hear more and more people talking about how weak the Union is, that we do not do enough for our citizens, that we do not tackle the energy crisis. Well, guess what? That's wrong. We do. And we do a huge amount of projects. We tackle the energy crisis. We have, despite all these crises and difficulties, we have economic growth. People are living pretty well in the European Union. But as we do a lot of things and not talk enough about this, and we do not talk enough about why we do it, that we do it because we believe in this European type democracy, that we believe in the freedoms of our citizens. I think we have to work more on our communication inside and outside to make the Union stronger. Thank you.
We, of course, just marked a sad one-year anniversary of the war in Ukraine. Are you sensing some war fatigueness across Europe and in your country, Romania in particular?
No. I know there is a lot of talk about this, but I hope that there is not so much talk to make it happen, the war fatigue. It's quite obvious that the way we deal with the war is complicated for our economies and for our citizens, and it needs endurance, it needs strength. We have to convince our citizens that we have to convince our citizens too that this is the right way to act, because Ukraine is not only fighting for Ukraine, they're fighting for us. They're not only defending their freedom, they're defending our freedom too. And all this has to be explained, and on the other hand, has to be made in a way that is a way feasible for our citizens too. I mean, we have to explain them why we do this, how we do it, but on the other hand, of course, we have to see that they are also under a huge pressure, under huge stress. If you turn on the TV or the radio or whatever, stress comes out of it, and we have to face this. But I believe that we have what it takes to face it.
I think I saw one hand up for one final question. Who has the microphone right there? Yes, go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Ciprian Stănescu, Climate Change Summit, Romania. Mr. President, you mentioned at the end of your speech, fit for the future. And being fit for the future has a lot to do with education and skills. How do you see the skills revolution or evolution in Europe, and what can we do better to be better prepared, not just for technology, as you're a physics professor, but also for climate sustainability and, I dare to say, civism? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. You touched an extremely important area, maybe the most important, if I may say so. This is education. Education in the complete sense, not only very specific education of math or financial abilities. The world is changing extremely fast. Well, guess what? We have to have the ability to educate our young generations even faster. This is happening. This is happening everywhere in Europe. Maybe it has to happen faster. Maybe we have to orient our school systems more towards what's going to be needed tomorrow, not what has been necessary in the 20th century. In Romania, we are very preoccupied with this. Actually, you touched one of the sectors dearest to me. Some years ago, I, together with my team, designed a project which is called Educated Romania. We have been working on it for several years. We had thousands of contacts, of meetings, of conferences, and right now, as we speak, we're in the phase where the legislation is being prepared to be sent to the parliament to make our educational system fit for the future. And when I say educational system, this begins at preschool age and goes on with lifelong learning, because not only our young generation has to cope with the future, we too, and you too, we are in different generations, but we also have to cope with what comes. And coping is not only about skills, it's about how you see the world, it's how you accept values, it's how you see your place in the world, it's how you position your nation, the European Union, in the world. It has to do with how you digest the enormous influx of information, of media pressure, and so on and so forth. And I think we do well to educate our young generations for a turbulent but hopefully beautiful future.
Yeah, we're almost out of time. I'm hearing a lot of, despite the difficult circumstances and times that we live in, I'm hearing a lot of optimism in your remarks and in your tone. Is that accurate?
It is.
And managed to end on an optimistic note in that.
Thank you very much.
President Iohannis, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you so much. Thank you indeed.